Welcome back to SharePoint Development for Beginners. In this episode, we're going to look at using the PNP controls to finally finish off our web parts, adding that really nice look and feel to them. And then we'll get them all ready for next week's episode when we package and deploy our web parts. Let's dive straight in. So we're almost there with our web parts. But today we're going to add in the PNP controls. These are the things that really make our web parts look nice and professional. Now, it's here at PNP spfx-controls-react. That's pnp.github.io. I'll put the link below. But you'll see we're going to add some controls. Now, we're going to add two controls today, although there's so many to add. The first one we're going to add is an accordion control. And we're going to put this in our FAQ web part so it looks nice. So for each FAQ, it will have an accordion title and the content will be rendered in a nice accordion. And to both the FAQ web part and the welcome web part, I'm going to add in there a placeholder control. And this is one of these nice ones, you know, where it says you need to configure something on your web part. Now, how does it look at the moment? Well, it kind of looks all right on the FAQ one, not so good on the welcome web part. So we're going to dive into the code and we're going to add in these PNP controls. So let's open our project up. I'm going to check I'm running the right version. I'm running Node 22. If you're not running Node 22, use NVM or whatever else you're using to switch to version 22. Okay, Windows being extra careful now. No, I don't want to restart. Okay, excellent. So what we're going to do is we're going to install the PNP controls. So let's have a look how we do that. We're going to go to the PNP site. This is what I had earlier, and go to home and look at the instructions here. And we're going to install the latest ones. Now, the ones we want to use are actually version 3. So we need to use version 3 and above, which it should automatically do based on the project version that we're using. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste it. There we are. And I'm going to run that. So notice when we installed, we did get a warning here saying about MGT SPFX. However, this is nothing to worry about. It's just a peer dependency that we can continue without. Okay, very good. So that's added that in there now. If I look at package.json, we can look in here and it's using version 3, which is nice. Okay, very good. So it's working along with all the different the property controls we've got there on version 3. So what's the first thing we're going to do? Well, let's have a look at the FAQ web part. And you'll notice we've got a bit of code in the FAQ web part that says that if we don't have a list title, then we need to show a message. So notice I've got here, if there isn't a list ID, we say we need to set a list title in the property pane. And if I go back to where we were last running that, you'll see we've got set a list title in the property pane. Okay, so what I want to do is replace this with a placeholder. So I need to go to the top and I need to do an import. And I need to import placeholder from the controls. And notice it's giving a warning because I haven't used it yet. Give us a chance, SPFX. Okay, so we're going to go down here now and we're going to replace this with a placeholder control. Placeholder, and it's giving us a warning because we need the other methods. So we're going to add the missing attributes in there. And I'm going to use a description of please configure the list. Okay. For an icon name, well, in here I can use edit. For the hover text that goes up over that, I'm going to do setup required. And we can also add in a special kind of button, which will be nice to put in. So we can do a button to say configure this web part. So I'm going to do a button label is going to be configure. And then finally, I'm going to say on configure, I'm going to call function on configure, which doesn't exist yet. So at the top, I'm going to put it in here, just above we returning that, and put my details in there. So basically it's going to say when you click that button on configure, call this to open the property pane, but we haven't got the context. So I'm going to have to add that into our properties. And I'm going to have to go to our FAQ properties. I'm going to add the context, which is going to be the Webpart context. And in order to add that, we're going to have to import the Webpart context from the Webpart based, and then this is going to be a Webpart context. So what we're saying is we're going to pass through the Webpart context, and we do that back here, which will be giving us an error, I believe, in a moment. If we look up here, there we are, because it's missing the context, and we just have to say context is this dot context. Excellent. So we're passing the context through. That's coming through to here. And then we're going to use that in our placeholder control, that when we click a button, we call on configure, which opens a property pane. So let's see this in action. Okay, let's make sure that's running. And then I'm just going to refresh the page. Brilliant. So let's add in our FAQ web part. And there we are. There's our placeholder control. If I click configure, then it opens this up for me. I can choose the list, I can apply it, and now it renders it out. So that's really nice that we can do that. You may have to refresh and restart a few times once you've added the controls for the first time, but there we go. So, all right, that still doesn't look very good. So for this, we need to use the accordion control for the FAQ. Okay, let's add the accordion. So the first thing I want to do is import it from our library. And of course, it will give an error that we haven't used it yet. Again, give us a chance, eh? So I'm just going to stop it running, and I'm going to go into here, and notice where we're mapping it now. What I'm going to do, instead of doing this UL and LI, I'm going to put an accordion for each item. So we'll see how this works. What I'm going to do is just put a empty surround on there, and for each item that I map, I'm going to put in here an accordion. Okay, with the key is equal to that. Let's see what other members we need to add in there. Okay, we need to add a title in here. So the title is going to be the i.title, just as we had from our object there. The body we're going to put in there. I think we'll put it in as a P in there. That'll do, just to give it a bit of a surround. We'll do P in there, and then we'll close off the accordion. And there we are. That should render it nicely. So what we're saying is for each item, render an accordion with the title of our FAQ and the body of our FAQ. Let's give it a run. FAQ setup required. We're going to configure it, and we're going to choose our FAQ list, apply it. This is what it was like before. It hasn't stopped building yet, so I'm going to go back to here and give it another refresh. Hey, there we are. We've got our nice collapsible FAQ. Let's have a preview. Yeah, I like that. That looks good. Now, other things you can set on it is, should it be open? Should it be collapsed? I think I'll just change that actually just in here to show you that in the accordion, I think we can say default collapsed equals true, or we could have just done default collapsed in there. Actually, we don't need to do is equal to true, but then the default is collapsed. Excellent. So if we now edit this, there is one last thing we need to look at, and this is in the welcome web part. And you'll notice that its default setting when it isn't configured with good morning or good afternoon is this horrible look here. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to have a look at our FAQ code, and we're going to copy the placeholder code from there. Copy that. Just the import. I'm going to go into the welcome web part. I'm going to add that in there. So we've got that. And what I'm going to do here is in the return, I'm just going to put something before here and say, and I'm going to say message, which we've got in there, equals blank. Then I'm going to return, and we're going to use our placeholder with all its missing attributes. So we'll add our missing attributes. We're going to say, please add messages. I'm going to put the icon name as edit, and I'm going to put setup webpart, and I'm not going to bother putting the onConfigure in there because we've got a reference to that in our other web part, but you can add that in your own time. So again, just to show you some of the real problems I get is it's not working out that it's null or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this one here to this. So it's basically saying that it's either going to be a morning message if it exists in our properties or nothing. And then I'm going to just trim the message. And that should hopefully bring us back knowing if it's null or not, the message, or undefined, so that we can put our placeholder up there. Hooray! And there we are. With that, it works. So if I go here and edit the web part and say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, you can see it's working. Excellent. So when I preview these now, we have our finished web parts. There's lots more you can do with them, of course, but the next thing we need to do is package and deploy them, and we're going to do that in the next episode to wrap everything up. Well, I hope you found that useful. Join us next time when we're going to package and deploy our web parts. As always, the source code can be found in the link below. If you haven't already, please click the like and the subscribe button. I'll see you next time.